Hello and welcome to this edition of the Psyched podcast on the Women in Psychedelics Network. I'm your host, Kaya Roman, and today I am so psyched to have Julie Zukof with us. This woman is my kindred spirit. I must say, when you meet her, if you ever get the privilege of meeting her, she emanates this incredible light and beauty. And obviously, we have a lot in common. Julie started an organization called Psychedelic Women, which I'm going to, hear about how it's similar or different to women in psychedelics, but obviously it's a passion of both of ours to elevate women and spread the word about psychedelic medicine. So, what I really have been intrigued about with Julie is this passion and this light that emanates from her. I know there's a fascinating story behind that. So I'm looking forward to hearing your story today, Julie. And let me just tell you guys her official bio. Julie Zukof is the creator of Psychedelic Women, a speaker series and influential community. She's based in Miami, so we'll hear more about that. Over her 18 career in New York City, Julie has created, innovated, marketed, and grown wellness brands by working at prestigious innovative firms and then starting her own consultancy. Julie is now head of strategic partnerships for Nue Life, the leading mental wellness company in at-home ketamine treatment. So welcome, Julie, and thank you so much for making the time to chat with me today.
Thank you for your kind words and for having me on here. I really appreciate it. I also feel the same about you, that you are just this bright, shiny person, whether you're on a panel or in person. You just are just a pleasure to be around. So,
oh, thank you. Well, I think it's interesting that this whole emerging field of psychedelic medicine, we're all attracted to it because we've had some kind of personal experience or transformation, right? And so you can often see that coming through when someone is really doing something from a mission-based perspective, that comes through. So I want to just start there. What got you into psychedelics? I mean, you're this amazing, accomplished woman with this incredible career in wellness, marketing, PR, but now you're deciding to put your talent and your time behind psychedelic medicine. There must be a story there.
yes. Of course, there's a professional story and there's also a personal story. I think, like most people getting into this field, personally, I've had my own mental health struggles. It happened through a pretty specific experience, I would say. I was living in Israel, and there was a war going on there. Was around 2012, and having not grown up there and not used to seeing the Iron Dome shooting down missiles that are coming to Tel Aviv and going into bomb shelters, which for Israelis I think it was scary for them too. But they grew up like that, and having family right there, growing up like that, just living there in an apartment, it was incredibly scary for me. And I literally packed my bags and came back to New York after this dream of wanting to move and live there. And I ended up spending 6 months there. I set up a whole life. I was on a triathlon team. I had an apartment. I had a job. And when I got back, I had severe anxiety and PTSD. I started taking on projects, and I couldn't even be in a hotel room that didn't have a window that was able to open. I couldn't be on a high floor. I just had extreme claustrophobia. And there was a siren that was in my hometown. I was staying with my parents, and it was a siren that was like a fire alarm. And every time I would hear it, it would sound like the alarm that you hear when you need to go down into the shelter. And just thinking back about it, I was really not functioning very well. I was trying to get my life back in order, but I was not functioning very well. And so I went to therapy. And during that time, also, my grandmother was quite sick and ended up passing away. So it was just this perfect storm of unfortunate time. And so I went to a therapist. They suggested I go see a psychiatrist, and they prescribed me antidepressant medication.
Yeah.
And at that time, I actually was quite pissed off. I said, you're telling me I have something wrong with my brain, that I have to be on this the rest of my life. Like, this is just not okay with me. And you're making me seem like I have something wrong with me.
Right.
And this was like a really hard time. And I was quite offended. And then, I talked actually with my mother, and she said, well, if you had an allergic reaction or if you had acid reflux or something, you would take a medication. So how is this any different? And she's a nurse, right? So she comes from like a Western medicine background.
Right.
And, when she said that, I was like, I guess you're right, and, now they've done all these studies where it shows that, there isn't a depressed brain of a serotonin issue, right?
Right.
There were scans done while that person was in a bad place, right? But that's not necessarily a permanent function of that brain, right?
Yeah.
So we learned a lot over time. And just in terms of my story, I went on antidepressants and I stayed on them for years.
Oh, you did it anyway. Wow.
So I did it anyway.
Yeah.
Punchline of the story. I did it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, of course, you wanted relief.
Yes. And then as things happen, the psychiatrist will be like, oh, maybe we should up it. Maybe we should up it. And then at some point, you're just on this high dose and you don't know, like, if you are you anymore, if you're numb, if you're less sensitive, how would you normally react? So anyway, over COVID, I weaned off of them.
Wow.
So I was on them for like a good 10 years.
Yeah.
I don't really tell publicly this story. This is probably the first time I'm telling this story on a podcast.
Thank you for sharing.
So I think it's important to know, though, like when people, to be your own advocate is important. Yeah. Psychedelics isn't right for everyone. SSRIs are not right for everyone, but it's important to just be your own advocate.
Yeah.
And under the guidance of a psychiatrist, I weaned off of them in combination with psilocybin, because there was a study that came out about psilocybin and weaning off of antidepressants.
Wow.
And that, you should never really do a macro dose or any big doses of many plant medicines while you're on SSRIs. But there was some recent studies about help in microdoses while you're weaning off. So anyway, I'm not a doctor and this is not my medical advice, but it helped me wean off of them. And
Amazing.
I'm at like the lowest dose now. So now I'm like almost all the way off. But it takes, as anybody listening knows, it can take a while. You have a lot of withdrawal symptoms of dizziness, nothing painful or like harmful to you. You just feel like dizzy. So, and
how fortunate that you came across that research and knew how to advocate for yourself and find the resources for yourself.
Yeah. And I give the credit also to friends of mine that were using plant medicine, that were encouraging it and just doing the research and having someone that is, trained in that field to advise and supervise and be there for that.
Yeah.
So access and education to information and support from the people around you, to me, was like just the biggest learning lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I really commend your bravery for sharing your story, Julie. And I'm sure so many people out there can relate. I mean, a ginormous portion of our population is on these SSRIs. And now, like you said, the information is coming out that serotonin receptors aren't even necessarily involved in depression. But people will probably be listening and saying, well, wait, how do you access these microdoses? Like, they're not legal federally yet.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tricky question maybe to talk about on our podcast, but it is something that, like, those of us that are working in the psychedelic industry, we want this to be accessible to everyone. So I'm glad that you have been able to access it. I live in Santa Cruz, California, which is one of the cities in the country. I think there's 13 cities or something like that, where these compounds are decriminalized. So it's easier to get them. And you can, there certainly are resources where there are psychologists like you've found, and products that you can find even under the current legal landscape. So I'm happy to share some of the resources that I have, and I'm really happy that you've been able to find those resources, Julie.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, me too. Me too. And the hope is that more people can have more access. And obviously you can leave the country, you could go to one of those cities,
Right.
and hopefully soon more and more cities will
Soon
be.
Oregon and Colorado.
Exactly.
And
Exactly. And
it's,
so
as
hopefully,
of yesterday, the, new legislation at a federal level being the Breakthrough Therapies Act being put forward. I mean, hopefully this is a real paradigm shift, which I'm guessing then from your own personal experience and hopefully, actually feeling better, you decided then to like jump into the industry aspect of it. Tell me about how you transitioned
yeah.
in that
So
way.
yeah, definitely. So my whole career, I've always worked in new product development and innovation. So, I worked at design firms and creative agencies in New York City. I did strategy. So it was always about what's the next thing. So, new product development and creating new brands was always something that was a passion of mine, and being an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. And so, when I worked at some particular companies, we were part of developing those new products, which were super exciting. And they were always things that like that were not mass yet, right? They were like ahead of the curve, trend hunting, culture hunting, focus groups, understanding people and the trends and forecasting and all of that. And so I did that for a solid 8 years. And then for the following 10 years, I left and went out on my own. I left corporate America. I went out on my own. And although it was an amazing experience creating new brands for Coca-Cola and, other amazing companies, Target and all of these things, I was like, I really want to focus on wellness. I'm super passionate about it personally. And I want to do it professionally. I don't want to, be a triathlete and like gluten-free in my personal life, and then in my professional life be marketing like Sprite and Bud Light Lime.
Right.
I was like, something's not aligned here.
Disconnect. Yeah.
And when you work in an agency, you don't always get control of what you work on, and you could be
Yep.
put on things that are just, they need somebody to be working on it, and you
Yep.
don't always, So long story short, I started working in wellness, so fitness brands. And that was when like Soul Cycle, this is 2011 now. And
Nice.
there was no wellness agencies. And it was really kind of the first of its kind to really focus on brands that were wellness. And so then when cannabis became more known as wellness, then I got into cannabis. I created a brand called Humboldt Brothers with the founders out of Humboldt County, California. And I worked with a company that was making financial investments into cannabis brands. So working on that. And then, psychedelics, plant medicine has always been wellness since forever, right?
Yeah.
That is nothing
Thousands of
new.
years.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
nothing new. But to the Western society here, that was more of a new news, obviously, and newer business and newer like ventures. And so a lot, like many people that went from cannabis to psychedelics, I was one of those people that really believed in the benefits of psychedelics personally, that knew that this was something that could help a lot of people if branded and marketed correctly, the right partnerships, the right people. And so I started with Nue Life about a year ago as an advisor and consultant. And then I came on full-time in May. And so my role with them is head of strategic partnerships. So I do partnerships with a lot of different kinds of sectors. First and foremost, my first thing to tackle was creating the veterans program. So we have two amazing veteran organizations we partner with, Seal Future Foundation and Green Beret Foundation. And we have cohorts of veteran led groups going through.
Maybe you should tell us about Nue Life, just in case people
yes,
don't even know what it is.
yes,
And,
yes.
I'm just loving all the synergy between us because I also have a long, background in marketing and PR, started at an agency, same thing, wanted to work with mission aligned projects and brands. And, another connection we have is that I co-founded KetaMD, which is an at-home, ketamine treatment company, and love everything that you guys are doing at Nue Life. And of course, I just believe that as many people as possible need this treatment. So please tell us what Nue
Yes.
Life is.
And actually, I learned about the idea of at-home ketamine because I saw somebody from KetaMD present about KetaMD. So so Nue Life is at home. It's a telemedicine, mental health and wellness company. Our medicine is at-home ketamine, and we have several different kinds of programs. And it includes preparation groups, integration groups, and health coaching. So we really believe at getting to the root cause of it and using it as a catalyst. And so the medicine, when paired with these other modalities, we're really finding incredible results. We just published a paper actually a few weeks ago in Frontiers in Psychiatry, and we've done 50,000 experiences, about 7,500 patients, and we studied 500 of those, and it was 500 treatment resistant patients. And so we know SSRIs work for about 40% of people, let's say. And our results show that of those 500 patients, 64% of them had a 50% reduction in their depression and anxiety, which
After how many treatments?
six,
After six treatments.
six treatments
Beautiful.
and preparation and
And the
integration.
coach.
And the
Yeah.
coach. Yes, which is
Amazing.
super important, the full package. So for me, now that you know my personal story,
Yeah.
when you hear about it wasn't published yet, but when I heard about this data and this information, I was just like a no-brainer to sign up. I believe in the founders and what they're doing, and the safety and the efficacy. And
so did you do the treatment yourself?
I need to do the treatment myself.
Okay.
Some personal things
You
going on
really do.
that yes, I really do, that have prevented me from being able to do it thus far, but
Okay.
it is definitely in my plans. And I'm actually really excited to try it. Most
Yeah, I mean,
people at
especially
the
if
company have tried it.
you still have that little bit of SSRI, that
Yeah.
you're getting off of. It's amazing that you have ketamine available to you. It can be very helpful for people in that situation.
Oh
And
yeah,
your
yeah.
study is amazing. I've shared it widely, and I'm, just so grateful to your incredible team for doing that study. It's such an important study with the oral ketamine because, so much of the research on ketamine is through intravenous administration in a clinic, and like what you're doing at Nue Life and what we're doing at KetaMD is providing an at-home option, which is really important. I mean, we all started doing this during the pandemic, but even when it's not a pandemic, if people who are depressed or dealing with anxiety, it's not easy to leave the house. It's not easy to go to a clinic. And so it's really important to be able to bring these psychedelic therapies to people where they are. Ketamine is the one that's legal and available now, but like you've seen incredible benefits from psilocybin and like exciting laws changing with MDMA. And it's just hopefully, a real paradigm shift where all psychedelic medicines will have more access, affordability, and safety protocols through the types of medical procedures and clinical trials and data that you guys are doing and we're working on as well. Thank you. I'm just like so grateful to you guys for the work that you're doing. And Nue Life is really lucky to have you, Julie.
Oh, thank you so much. And you're welcome. And I can take no credit for that. That was Dr. Hassan on the medical team, Aditya, on our tech side, gathering all the data.
I'm a huge fan of Dr. Hassan. He gave me my very first ketamine treatments. I did a series of treatments in his clinic in Miami, long before Nue Life. So, for people who are maybe listening that haven't tried ketamine, it can be kind of scary. Like, it's not a plant, first of all. A lot of us who are in psychedelics, we are comfortable with plants. We know plants. We know plant medicine, but this is like a chemical. And especially if you go to a clinic, you have to like put a needle in your arm. It can be scary. You don't know what the experience is going to be like. But it's amazing. It's very gentle. It's so peaceful compared to something like an ayahuasca journey. It's like a walk in the park. And then, you know, you can imagine being able to have a treatment with somebody so comforting and so smart like Dr. Hassan. I was very fortunate to have such a positive first introduction to ketamine, and it really inspired me to want to make that available to people much more widely. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's an amazing
Amazing. And I think,
molecule.
yeah, I think that's an important point you make, is this access point. I think, you know, it's not an either or, like which is better, clinic or at home. You know, to your point, it's for different people and different reasons and different uses. And if we're creating extremely safe protocols, low doses, a sitter, ways to, you know, one dose at a time, you know, there are better ways, if you're going to abuse ketamine, to go and get it somewhere else. It's not
Yes.
going to happen with our company or yours, right?
No,
Why, I don't know why you would pay to have
way
integration,
too expensive.
and health coaching and all that if you're just going to go and, like, you know, abuse it. So, you know, we don't see that happening. We've never had an emergency in
Yeah,
50,000 experiences. And I think that's
incredible.
really important to talk about safety, because
Mhm.
it is at the core of what we're doing and what most at-home companies are doing, because people deserve to have access and safety,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree. So I want to ask you about the Psychedelic Women. What inspired you to start it? Like, what is it? What do you guys do? How can people get involved? And you know, obviously, this podcast is being hosted by the Women in Psychedelics Network, which is more, you know, like women in the industry. It's for networking. We post jobs. We have events. It's free to join. But I'm guessing that you know, we all saw a similar need, which is like at the beginning of these new industries, it's so important to have women involvement and women's voices and women's bodies represented. Like, you know, we have different biology, we have different hormones. We need to be a big part of the decisions that are being made at this critical time. So yeah, I just would love to hear more about what your organization is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's true. It's a very similar story. And, you know, I was just going to panels in Miami, and I thought they were amazing. And I thought the one or two women speaking on the panels that were on the panels were amazing. And I said, how can I help you get more women on these panels? You know,
Yeah.
are there not women in Miami working in psychedelics? Are there not enough women in psychedelics, or do
Where are the
you
women?
not know them, you know, and do
Right.
you need like a lead gen for
Yeah.
these amazing people? And it really actually started not as a group. It started as, okay, Julie, why don't you lead a women's panel?
Yeah.
And so I led it was at Soho House with the amazing Dustin Robinson. He's incredible human. And he really gave me this opportunity to put women on the stage, only women, and talk about psychedelics in general, and then also female specific things. And that was back in January of 2022. And we created a WhatsApp group just for the panelists. And then women that attended the event asked if they can, and we called the panel Psychedelic Women. And people asked, can they join Psychedelic Women? So we just added them to
So
our
it became an
panelists.
organization without you meaning it to be.
Exactly.
I
That's
love
literally
it.
exactly what happened, to be honest with you. And so we added them to the WhatsApp group, and then they added people to the WhatsApp. Now we're at like hundreds of women in this
Yeah.
WhatsApp group, which, as you know, you're in it. Thank you. And so basically, I developed a website and a mission, and that mission has always been to elevate women's voices in this space and give them a platform that I wasn't seeing happening in my own city. Maybe it was happening in other people's cities. And I know women for centuries have been fighting for women's voices, and there are incredible women's groups that I found out about after this panel, like Women in Psychedelics Network. They're sisters in psychedelics.
Yes.
The founders are also in our group.
Yes. Love
And
them.
what I love about all of this is we all kind of came at it noticing a similar thing, all living in different cities.
Yeah.
So, they're up in Vancouver.
Yeah.
You got the founders of Women in Psychedelics
They're
are
in
based
Toronto,
in
but
Toronto.
we're all over the place.
Right. And so I read their story prior to this podcast. I read the Sisters in Psychedelics story prior to talking with them. And it's a very similar story.
Yeah.
Attending events, noticing underrepresentation, very similar to what I saw in cannabis as well. And women wanting to connect. Like, I have to say, the women created this group.
Yeah.
I didn't actually really create this group. The women did. And I just created a wraparound. Right. And so now, we have a few hundred women. It's all kinds of women, I should say. It's not just people in the industry. It's just, it's also psychedelic curious people, people that are interested in learning more, people who have never done it before, people that have done it before. So it's therapists, it's medical researchers, so it's marketers, it's founders, it's investors. So really, my goal is to give all women a voice in this space and give women access and connection and community, because till this day, as we all know, across all industries, women are underrepresented in being founders. They're underrepresented in the checks that are being written to their companies. And that statistic only goes down even more with women in color.
Yeah.
When you think about psychedelics and the origins of psychedelics, that is a women in color, of women of color, community.
Yeah.
And so how can we create a network, create a community that connects a therapist with a founder and they make something, or connects an investor with a founder and they make something, right? Or connects a person that is in a dark place that has been dying to know where is a good retreat to go to so they can get out of their house. And they profit from that personally and mentally, then like we've done our job, right? So nothing makes me feel better when I see in the WhatsApp group, does someone have a therapist in Boston because my sister's nephew's going, and someone's like, I do, and
I know, it's amazing.
And then other times it's like something totally business related, and just seeing all these women being so generous with their time and helping each other and promoting each other. And this is an example of that. There is, in my opinion, no competition and only respect, and bringing each other up and trying to understand where each other are coming from,
Yeah. Oh, so beautifully encapsulated, Julie. And yeah, I have to say, since I've been part of the WhatsApp group, it has been just very awe-inspiring and heartwarming to witness how much everyone in there is lifting each other up and supporting each other. And I think you're right. Like, we all saw this need from all these different points, and that's what it takes. It takes collective consciousness waking up and saying, hey, we need women, or we need access, or we need diversity, we need affordability, we need to honor the sacred, like all of these things. This is what it's going to take to usher in this new paradigm of this medicine, because yes, as you said, the medicine has been held by women of color and these indigenous cultures for thousands of years, but now it's moving into this Western medical paradigm, whether we like it or not. So we better be part of that conversation and part of that birthing process. So it's been just really beautiful to see what you've brought, how you've brought these people together. So how can people access, how can women access it?
And I realized I didn't answer all your questions. So
no, that's okay.
We are a speaker series and a community. So since that first panel that we had in collaboration with Soho House and Dustin Robinson and Eater Investments and his company Nucleus, we created a panel series called Psychedelic Women. And so we've had maybe 5 to date. We have had them in Miami. We had it at Nue House in New York City. We've had amazing founders and panelists like Sylvia Benito. You probably know her. She spoke at Davos, and and at Wonderland and many other places. She's incredible. Dr. Michelle Weiner, Dr. Denise Vido. I mean, the list is just really incredible. And they've all been different subjects and topics, from, people that have podcasts about the space, to nurse practitioners that are working in the space, to doctors, to researchers. And so we have a digital community that's currently WhatsApp, but we're going to move it to a more structured chat that categorizes everything, I should say, and really helps women navigate the conversations.
And is there a website at this time?
Yes, so you can find us psychedelicwomen.co.
Perfect.
And then on Instagram, psychedelicwomen.co.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Julie, if people want to follow up with you directly, is psychedelicwomen.co and Instagram the best place, or what other resources would you like to share with our listeners about, how to be in touch with you and
Yeah,
follow
that's
you?
the best place. My personal Instagram is Julie Good Juju. I always smile when I see that handle. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the best place. If you're interested in Nue Life as a potential patient, we could give anyone listening to this podcast a discount. We're happy to. You could email me at jz@nue.life. If you're a provider and are interested in working with Nue Life to prescribe to your patients, you could email me as well. We're working with providers, psychiatrists, physicians, nurse practitioners, ketamine clinics.
Great.
And if you're a veteran, reach out as well.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much. I'm so glad we had a chance to have this conversation. And I just really am so impressed and grateful for you for the work that you're doing. So please, you guys, follow Julie, get involved with the Psychedelic Women. Check out Nue Life if you know someone who's struggling and wants to investigate at-home ketamine treatment. And you're not in Florida, because if you're in Florida, you can use KetaMD. No competition. It's all, we just need psychedelics for the masses. So thank you so much, Julie, for your time, for your kind and beautiful heart. And thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Kaya. Thank you.